2, 1, live. All right,
Live,
y'all. Another old
all the way live.
Sunday conversation. I'm blessed to have my cousin here, Jason Hudson.
Hello.
Um, I thank you for your time, cuz.
Yes,
Appreciate
of course.
you coming in
Of
and
course.
sitting with me here this Sunday. I tried to get your dad as we talked earlier, but he had a
Yeah.
couple things. You know, we got a busy family, right?
Yeah. Everybody doing something.
Everybody is doing something. So with old
It's
school
all
Sunday, that's what I try to do. Go ahead, bring people in from my circle and around my family that are doing things and try to uplift, give people some insight into things they may
okay.
have been thinking about, things that
Okay.
they don't know what's going on, and also inspiration with how to live their life and let them know that things are possible if they put their mind to it.
Yep.
So I know that you're doing a lot of things. If you take, maybe the first minute to introduce yourself and kind of tell what you do, and then I had some questions I wanted to ask you about
Okay.
what you do and how you do what you do and how you get into where you're at right now.
Yeah. Well, a little bit about myself. I born and raised. I'm from Alabama, a small town called Dora. Two traffic light town, very small town, very humble beginnings, man. Very simple beginnings, and grew up hardworking in sports, playing sports. I played a little college basketball and had hoop dreams. And,
Right?
as life has it, a lot of times what's actually purposeful and what you want may not necessarily align or manifest itself how you think in your mind initially how it would be. So with me, of course, with that, I say that to say, through injury, uh, and sort of coming to a crossroads with sports, I kind of found my passion in storytelling. Um, and it started very innocent in the beginning as far as just being an actor, wanting to perform. I've always had a sort of a natural sort of inclination towards that. Something I really like when the lights are on. So ever since I was a kid, and you never know these things until you're exposed to them. And so I got a chance to kind of be exposed to a totally different ecosystem that I ever knew. And it was almost like I ended up home. I felt at home in sort of the applications of that. And so through that studying, uh, I wanted to learn more about what my craft as an actor and stuff. So I ended up I was at UAB in Birmingham, Alabama. So I went to play ball at Shelton State, Tuscaloosa, JUCO ball, and so I ended up at UAB. And so from there, uh, I joined their theater program, and from there, I started. I was like, wow, this is interesting. Um, I want to know more about who I am in this craft because I felt like I was a late bloomer, a late starter. All my classmates and colleagues at the time, everybody was sort of into the arts since they're kids, and here I am, post basketball, an athlete coming into sort of these classes, and I just felt everybody was just so good, and I felt like, wow, I feel I can be that, and so I wanted to work at it and figure that out for myself. And there's something called Unified Regional Theater Auditions. And these are held Chicago, New York, Los Angeles. These are all your graduate acting programs throughout the country. I would say your premier 40, maybe 50 grad schools. They attend these
Mhm.
sort of herders. And I went to the one in San Francisco, and that was my first time flying at 25 years old. It was my first time flying, and I'm flying out to sort of go to this Erda's, theater audition, grad school audition weekend. And what you do is you do a contemporary and a classical monologue. These are speeches or passages inside of these stories that it's just one character talking to the audience and giving you
Mhm.
a sort of articulate perspective of where they are at that stage in the story. And I did that, man. I got callbacks from a lot of major schools: NYU, Carnegie Mellon, Washington State, Yale, Nebraska. Nebraska was going to pay me to come. So,
Wow.
so I went, and I was satisfied. UCLA is really a school I really wanted to go to out here in LA, and they called me back. So I met with all the heads of these departments. We talked, and everybody's talking good. Now, at the time, transitioning from basketball to like the theater arts, there's a transition there, and my grades didn't necessarily reflect that. Well, they did reflect that transition, as in they weren't good. So my grades really suffered because I didn't think I was going to finish school at all. No more basketball. So like, what's the point of school? So I'm working like construction job, and I'm building bridges there in Alabama. And so at the same time, so I kind of was piece by piece kind of getting into the program, but I didn't care about school, partying a lot. So going to these graduate school auditions, I don't know if you know it or not, but for graduate school, you need at least a 3.5 GPA to be accepted into a public graduate program. At the time, maybe things have changed today. And I didn't know this. I had no idea. So at the time of I've flown out to these IRTAs, my GPA was a 1.6. A 1.6. Okay. Keep that in mind. That's very important.
That's a big difference.
And so
then 3.5. That's a big difference from 3.5.
That's a huge difference. And I am in my senior year. So this is senior year. I'm with a 1.6 GPA, looking to go to grad school for theater arts to learn, because I wanted to like study more, right? And so we did the callbacks, talked to all the heads of these departments, and I was with a friend, Marie, and we went out, went to the bars and stuff, celebrated, and she was like, all right, I'm going in. She's like, USC has auditions in the morning. I'm gonna go. Now the bigger schools, NYU, USC, Yale, I think even Juilliard, they're separate from the main audition. So instead of like 40 schools, they had theirs separate, and you had to pay extra to like go to these, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm out. I'm having a good time. Maurice, I'm going in. And USC had theirs, the next morning, 6 a.m. You had to be there, 6 a.m. Okay. And so, okay, cool. She goes in. I'm out partying still a little bit, having fun. And I get in later. I'll get in like 1, 2 in the morning. And sure enough, I fall asleep. And by the time I wake up, I hear her in there showering, getting ready for this thing. And I never forget this. She said, and I quote, she said, well, don't put all your eggs in one basket. I was like, well, what do you mean by that? I was like, I got the schools I wanted, I'm fine. She was like, yeah, don't put all your eggs in one basket, So I heard as I was kind of asleep. She was like, I'm going. It's just like it's 5:15. You got 15 minutes, 30 minutes to get ready. So I drag myself out of the bed, man. I go and take my money out the ATM, the extra money that I wanted to use to go to the bars and celebrate. I'm in San Francisco. I've never been out there, so hey, what's going on? And I do it, and I take the money out, and I go to the audition. But when I showed up there, the heads of the department, the artistic director, Andy Robinson, he is, he was, you remember the movie Dirty Harry?
Yes.
So do you remember the Scorpio? Do you remember the bad guy in Dirty Harry? The Scorpio, the sniper guy?
Okay, yes.
He was the villain. So that's Andy, and he was the head of the department at USC. So he was running the MFA. It's a Master of Fine Arts in Acting. So he was the head of the department. So he's a good, he's a really good actor, that's had a career. And so he got up and started talking, man. And it was something interesting because I was like, wow, he's talking my language. I felt like he was speaking to me. Okay, cool. All right. Okay. This kind of, I'm liking this. So I did my pieces for them. I walk out. Soon as I walk out, I kid you not, the head of administrations walked out right after me, said, hey, Jason, we want to fly you to Los Angeles for our callbacks. What? They were like, the callbacks were like in a month. So, and they were going to pay for it. So now I'm like, what? This thing is going nuclear, So I did. And I was like, okay, cool. So ended up flying back home, flew out to LA for a callback weekend. So out of about 1,500 students, they flew out 30. They flew out 30 for this callback weekend at USC. And I was one of the 30. And we did a lot of voice movement, just craft stuff of what it means to be a performer, and a lot of exercises. But it was I saw the campus beautiful, and I was like, well, this is interesting. It's something I feel like I really wanted to do. Now, we did the weekend. I flew back. I was finishing up at UAB in class, and so by the time I get back, I flew back. I arrived on a Sunday. Monday, Tuesday, I got an email from Sergio on Wednesday night. He said, we'd like to offer you a full ride to USC's 2007 MFA acting class. They offered me a full ride with a 1.6 GPA. And the only reason they would do it because they're a private school. Private schools, different guidelines, right? So the only thing I had to do, I need to graduate undergrad. So I had to get my 1.6 to a 2.0 to graduate. And so that was me finishing the semester out, making all A's. And then I had to do 18 hours in the summer. And I was working 3 jobs. So I worked 3 jobs and did 18 hours in the summer. I had to make almost straight A's to get to USC. All right. I literally technically graduated on a Friday. Me, my dad, and my uncle, we loaded all my stuff up on his truck. He pulled my car in his truck, all my stuff, grandma, all her stuff, like all the couches and stuff, pulled it in there, and we came out to LA, left on a Friday. I was in class on Monday morning.
Wow.
So that's how I got to USC. And that was the beginning of the beginning. And here we are. The program was 2007 through 2010. And, went through there, learned a lot about myself, my voice, not as a human being, my perspective on life. I think it's more so when you're a performer or you want to sort of be a torchbearer of humanity, you got to really be curious about yourself internally and really be aware and be curious about, what was imposed on you in your environment and what is more so your truest manifestation of who you are, rather than what others have told you to be or what you think you should be for other people. And I think which is really important. So you go through these things when you're in such a strenuous program. And coming out, did TV, film, commercials, man. I was married at the time, beautiful girl, and we were together, but it's like apples and oranges, so, and I was very stubborn at the time, I think very prideful, and that's just kind of indicative of what, how I grew up and what I had come from. Looking back on it, there's a lot of things I could have done different. I would have done different. So once going through that, I'm starting to scrub bottom now. So I'm riding this wave. I'm one booking away from like mainstream Hollywood sort of deal. A couple of big projects. Like I was up for Star Wars. I got 2 producers in the last Star Wars trilogy. I got 2 producers on that, and it went to John Boyega. But me on my size, and he's a little guy, and the lead girl, she's a smaller girl, so they went with him. and he had credits from like the UK. But that was one of those things where if I get cast in that, then it's like, you know, it's a life-changing sort of moment. And those still exist.
Well,
But
no
that's
doubt.
that's the sort of flow I was at. I was in that sort of circle, just that very sort of a game of inches, you know, and which is fine. And so I went through that, and then things stopped happening. As things stopped happening, and I produced on some movies. I learned how to like make a movie technically. So I started in this interim time
Right.
of things not happening, you know. I started writing and trying to find my voice. How can I expand myself as a storyteller more so than just being a performer? And so learning how to make a film technically, because I love cinema, I started writing, and about a year and a half, 2 to 4 hours a day, I was in a coffee shop writing. And then as I was doing that, things really started really hitting the bottom, started tugging at me, man. And at one point I was, you know, living out of my car. I was for about a year and a half. After that year and a half of sort of like writing. So a year and a half of writing, cushy life, but it's like I wasn't looking, I couldn't see ahead. I couldn't see things that I should be doing for sustainability. Rather, I was just so in the moment. I felt like I was working on something, but it was very lax. And so that caught up with me. And so now, instead of, if I had been thinking sustainably, you know, I could have, I think, kept certain sort of situations from happening. And where you get in it's sort of in the deep, and now you got to really figure it out. So for about a
Let
year
me
and a
stop
half,
you right there.
yeah,
Let me stop you right there. But I appreciate that, because you giving a lot, and I just want to stop you right there to slow it down, to unpack what you literally just said in regards to what it had me reflecting on, as you saying that, you know, you had these ebb and flows of down moments, high moments, and
mm,
then now you see yourself raising back up again. And I just
mm,
want to go back to that genesis of you starting with getting into USC, getting offered that scholarship as
mm,
well. It's kind
mm,
of like you had that ability, and that's what I love about a lot of people in my family. And again, not bragging on my family, because everybody have family, but
sure,
that ability at a time to hit that light bulb and go all the way in when you know that it's that need to have to go all the way in. I mean, just
mm-hmm,
hearing your story had me reflecting on me coming out of high school with like
mm-hmm,
the 1.8 or something like that, and needing to get to a 2.0 so that I can get into college and take
mm-hmm,
my life into a whole different frame. But then having some down moments,
yeah,
going through my Eminem thing, and not to be
yeah,
bringing that up old school Sunday conversation, but again, while we had these conversations, is that opportunity to reflect and also that opportunity to grow.
yeah,
And again, just want to stop you in that moment to have a reflection moment of, are there, and I asked the minister this in our last old school Sunday conversation, if you get a chance to check it out with me and my father-in-law, where there are cycles that happen in people's lives
mm,
where
uh-oh,
you find things constantly repeating. Again, you having that 1.6 saying, oh, I got to turn this light bulb on. And then the universe coming into fold, you getting that full ride that you got. Now, again, you see yourself going down in that L, but now you feel like that light and that energy is turning back on again. As a
yeah,
storyteller, what is that in that connection to humanity? I think that's in all of us. We kind of these living complex contradiction. I think Paul even talked about that. I want to do good. I know I'm a Christian, but here come that wrong. Like, it's time for the
yes,
wrong. Here come that
yes,
wrong. I gotta live it. I gotta swim in it. But
right,
then that side of you that, you know, hey, it's time for me to do what I need to do and take care
yeah.
of business. What is it that, I guess, have us do that as humans? And what can you say brings us out of that cycle and charges the discipline in us to keep marching forward to do exactly what we need to do?
Mm. Okay, so I've had a lot of introspection about this very subject, and you're absolutely right. So as human beings along this journey, we are not exempt from the ebbs and flows. It's inevitable. It's
Right.
going to happen. You have to know that that's actually the beauty of life, that you have this sort of wave up and down. And when you can find the beauty in the struggle, quote unquote, you have a more deeper appreciation for life and the fact that you get a chance, an opportunity to learn something that you did not know.
Okay.
Because in order for you to
Right.
move forward, it's going to be imperative for you to learn something while you're in that transition. And so, I was curious about that because, yeah, I mean, I could look back specifically on the last 15 or so years, and I see the roller coaster. I see the roller coaster, but with maturity and introspection and curiosity, you start gaining experience. And if these cycles continue to happen, they will happen. But what happens with experience, you can make the proper adjustments and align yourself so that wave, the angle of
You froze on me,
a little
Jason.
bit, it may be a little bit, yeah. Can
Hey,
you hear me?
talking about the roller coaster. I hear you now. You saying that.
Okay.
What happens after you notice that you're on that roller coaster? What does experience tell you again?
So experience tells you the roller coaster, the height and the lows don't be so high and don't be so low. So what happens is sort of now all of a sudden you're more so, more even keel. You're never too high, you're never too low. Not to say, not to say you don't have the experiences, but you kind of understand life in a certain way and you appreciate. It comes from a place of appreciation, gratitude. So if you're going through something in life and it's not going the way you want it, if you can stop and pause within that present moment and say, you know what, I'm very thankful. I have gratitude for this experience that I'm having. I'm thankful for it because it's part of life and I'm getting a chance to live life. And I think when you come at it from that angle, you're not necessarily thrown by the wind. You're not necessarily ran off base that much. You really can get it back to zero. You really, get it back to zero. So that's really my sort of articulation. And so much so, it's so funny you bring it up, is I wrote a film based on this transition, period. Based on this quote unquote in between is what I call it. This place between 2 points, between 2 points. So you have a point of height, and then you go down and then got another point, right? So between those 2 high points, quote unquote, again, between those 2 high points, that dip, that transition, that lull, I was so curious and fascinated about that. And I wrote about it. So I have a film based on that dip right there. And it's a fantastic and thrilling exploration of purgatory in a certain kind of sense. That's what I'm calling it, but it's a place of transition. Yeah. So I was able to exercise my curiosity through story. And that's how, that sort of helped me articulate a lot of things that I've gone through and to equip me for, what is to, how to respond.
Right. I like that. And I think that kind of leads into my next question that I have. And with what you're saying and what you're promoting is a sense that that's what the human experience is about. Now I know we in a world now where people get labeled as Gen Xers, millennials. You still have these baby boomers that swear they the greatest generation to ever walk the earth. Let me ask you a question. Is there an unspoken war right now between millennials, Gen Xers, baby boomers, and who currently, the baby boomers who currently run a lot of stuff? I don't know if that's the same in Hollywood, but I'm looking at them as the old guard, so to speak. Is that a true war that's going on where narratives are being told and being put on us as far as what we consume in media in life? Is that a true thing that's happening right now, or is that something that's just I guess
I
people
think
experience and what they write about their experience? If you understand that.
I think you're absolutely right. I do feel, you know, the word language war, the terminology war is a very stark, sort of vivid word to use. So I'd like to define in a more gentle way where I feel there's a lot of confusion. And the confusion um, is how, you know, let me close this window.
Okay. It's going to pick something up.
Yeah, close that window. So the confusion, I feel the confusion is, so the baby boomers and the millennials, right? The baby boomers is like, what, even though, yeah, they're the guards, you know, they have held the keys for so long, in a lot of ways, but it's sort of like they're, it can almost seem fear-based. So it's like they don't know what the future would hold for them if they let go of sort of these facilities, or these keys. Let's just say these keys. And not let go as have like just handing them over, but knowing that they actually can trust, you know, our generation with you know, having a set of keys too, and what that could look like. And then, so you got, for me, it's three subgroups. You know, you have the baby boomers, you know, millennials, you know what I mean, and zennials, and then you have, like I say, this new generation. And so 1, 2, 3. One is like, you know, all the way over here. The 3 is all the way here. I feel like we're in the middle. We have a little bit of what the baby boomers had, then we have a little bit of this sort of new wave progression, which I think is a cool mixture. And ultimately, I think it's up to us, our generation, believe it or not, I think it's up to us to be able to articulate and communicate this sense of groundedness to these newer generations. Because what's happening is everybody wants to sort of be on the trend or be a part of the conversation, but really aren't necessarily thinking for themselves. And they're afraid to be in disagreement with somebody else. So everybody wants to be inclusive. And it has a lot to do with social media and sort of the hive mentality of what's going on as far as making sure I'm accepted, or making sure, you know, I'm for this cause or I'm for that cause. And it's like, it's more so, you know, I'm raising my hand to be a part of a cause. So you see my hand raised, you can accept me, rather than truly feeling the core of what it is I'm raising my hand for. And so now that I raise my hand, I get validity, I get included, and there's some cachet there. There's some social cachet in knowing that I'm including myself with X, Y, and Z, you know? And so I think there's a lot of confusion going on. And I think there's and I think it's ultimately on, believe it or not, it's our generation, that middle generation, it's a little bit of the before and a little bit of the after, to instill and to get to these positions where we have a set of keys also, and try to align and motivate and steer this latter generation, and so they can have some sort of what the very foundations of what this society has been built on. Because if not, I do think we run a huge gamble if values aren't instilled. We run a huge gamble. with just society globally in a certain kind of way.
Now, I like what you're saying in regards to the narrative, in the sense needing to be changed. And again, I think that happens with the different stories that get told. How, in my mind, how it gets played out in media, and as you said, through social media, people want to raise their hand and be a part of a side and say, "Oh, I contributed.
Yes.
I like this post."
Yes.
What is the? I guess this is kind of a twofold question. What is the art of having your own story to tell? I've been thinking about this old school Sunday thing as I was telling my father-in-law when I had our interview for about 12 years. It seemed like the Lord had that on my heart. I know me and you had talked at the beginning of, I don't know if it was the beginning of this year or the end of last year, and you was like, "Cuz, you just gotta record. You gotta hit the record button, sit down." But for some reason, it was so hard to do that. But now, again, going back into that flow, I don't even know what it is. Well, I know I feel it's the spirit, and I'm praying in it. But I'm at what you say that high point of I don't care what it is. I got to record. Okay, I couldn't talk to your dad. I got to get somebody on this line. Old school Sunday conversations must happen. It's beyond my physical control of power to say no. I'm not gonna do it. If I don't do nothing else, we 9-10 o'clock at night. I'm usually doing my conversations at like 1 p.m. But hey, the show must go on in a sense.
Yeah.
So how do we, or excuse me, what is the art of telling the story, and then how do you control your narrative where you're not just raising your hand, but you expressing how you feel in the situation, and you're not just hitting that like button. You got some little commentary as well, and it's your own narrative of how you feel. How do you express that? How do you think?
So what's the first part? The art of what? The first part was the art of what now?
The art is telling stories. What is that art? What is the art of telling stories?
The art of telling stories ultimately, I think, boils down to a very objective and genuine, pure curiosity about humanity, about our existence, about things we go through, our thoughts, how flawed we are as human beings, and that's okay. How often we fail at life, and that's okay. So what happens is,
wow,
I'm not necessarily interested in the quote unquote Hollywood ending. I'm more so interested in a righteous failing. So because that's more truthful to what we experience as life. Because we fail many times over, and that's okay. And you got to, for some reason, people have strayed away or gotten away from knowing that it's okay to fail. Like it's something the generation, this latter generation, would rather not try. You see what I'm saying? And what you said, about the show must go on. You with your podcast here, this talk show, you just got to do it. At the end of the day, the only thing you got to do is just do it. That's it.
Right.
And it will become its own. It will allow you, back to the art of storytelling, it will allow you to understand what it actually is that it's supposed to be. It's going to inform you, and you're just going to follow suit to how it manifests itself, because it's going to naturally happen just through the action of doing. So that's my, I think, definition of the art of storytelling. It's just coming from a genuine place of curiosity. It's a very objective. It's almost like a perverted curiosity. You can't turn it off. It's like, oh, well, imagine some, horrific event in the news, right? Cool. That was so bad. So sad, horrendous, right? But something in my brain says, man, what was he? What was that person who was who did acts or did the horrendous sort of things? What were they thinking? Where were they psychologically? What's their perspective? Where was their heart at? Like what made them act like that? You know what I mean? And so there's almost like a scientific sort of magnifying glass, and you want to distill, piece that together to try and understand or comprehend sort of those acts. And they're not from a place of judgment.
Right.
They're from a place of, you know what I mean? This is another human that just kind of
Exactly.
went left. What made that person go left, you know? So that's more so like the art of storytelling. And it comes from that. That's the foundation of it. And the second part was, your second part was about, what was the second part?
How do you control your narrative? I think I'm asking these questions. One that I'm reflecting as I'm hearing your answer, and I think you give a great response to the art of telling a story, and then that curiosity that pops out. And the second part of the question, and let me kind of preface this a little bit, was how do you control your narrative? Because what you just said in regards to news cycles and how just for lack of a better situation they're looking at, how African Americans are viewed in stories that come on the news, they get quote unquote stereotyped, and we become that monolith story of okay, this black guy must have been wrong, but it takes a George Floyd situation to happen for everybody's eyes to be like, hold on, that story don't sound right. So again, behind these stories, behind the art of certain people controlling the storyline of African Americans, there becomes a certain narrative about what is it to be an African American. I walk into a classroom or walk into a room, or any African American walk into a room, there's automatically this story that plays in people's head. Even as an African American, just saying, I know I was raised different. I'm gonna judge this person by what I see, but I can't help that perverted mind of a story being told in my head. Because if I watch TV, I don't watch as much as I used to watch. But as much TV as I've watched, as much media as I've consumed, there's a narrative, there's a story about an African American before they even open their mouth. And I've learned in my philosophical backgrounds that 90% of people's perception become their reality. So that story, that becomes their narrative before they can disprove that narrative. Well, that second part of the question I was asking was how do you control the narrative? How do you control your narrative?
How do you control it? So how do you control a narrative that's not yours, that's been imposed on you? Seem like what you're asking, because like I said, people.
Well, that was my second question. Is it worth redirecting a false? Right. My follow-up question was, is it worth redirecting a false narrative? So people got this narrative of me. I might go in the room. I'm not gonna open my mouth. I'm gonna just let you think what you think. I don't have to disprove what you think my narrative is. Because you obviously don't know. If you're looking at me like that and you thinking like that about me, and you haven't heard me open my mouth or say one thing. So again, how do you control your narrative? And then is there a sense of a false narrative out there? Excuse me, is a false narrative worth redirecting in your mind?
That's good. So first and foremost, you can't control another person how they think. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do. Trying to waste energy in deflecting or redirecting their perception of you is fruitless. Okay, that's not where the energy should be spent. Instead, going back to the very foundation of the art of storytelling, and this is one of the founding sort of elements, is you 1000% need to be about the work. So if you're going into these rooms and you've really crafted the process, you really are very informed about whatever the reason is you're inside those rooms. You know what it is you're talking about. What you're talking about means something to you. You're not just doing it for money. You're just not doing it for recognition. It really means something at the core of your being. There's a reason why you're doing it. And when you come in contact with these sort of elements, this core, and you walk into a room equipped with this energy, you as a person becomes undeniable. So no matter at that point, no matter your skin tone does not even play a fact, because you're coming to and yeah, a person, whatever, they still may judge you, whatever, but they cannot deny you the fact that you are there speaking about what it is you're talking about. You know what you're saying, and it means something to you on a human level about what it is you're saying. That's undeniable. And I think if more people invested their energy into making sure their craft is quote unquote mastered, or their craft is very, very, it means something to them. The reason why they're doing it, and they can tap into that sort of purity of it. That purity in the heart of that is a universal language that every human being, we all share together, believe it or not. And it's only then when you tap into that are you be able to draw men and women into what it is you're doing, or whatever the meeting's about. But you have to come from this pure place. And coming from that pure place, you aren't imposed on by other people's perceptions. So no matter what a person may be thinking or feeling about you, that doesn't even register, because you're so not about that. You're so much about the purity of what you're doing. So it's just a natural deflection happens. Your aura is so strong, your spirit is so strong that doesn't even compute for you. You feel sorry for that person that they're feeling that way. As a human being, I feel sorry for you. I have empathy for you, that your heart is that way. And I still love you. I still love you. You may be racist, whatever. I still love you. I'm sorry,
That's
man.
powerful,
I wish you well. Huh?
Right. I said that's powerful. That's powerful. And that's a hard concept for people to understand and hear. And I thank you for having that on Old School Sunday. It kind of gives me thinking of that old school saying, "I'm gonna kill you with kindness. Be blessed and glory to God." Because I love bringing God into a conversation when I'm talking to them type of clowns, and it's just like that devil getting fleeing.
That's where it's at. That's where you are, and you're doing your part. You know what I mean? As far as at least being an example of how that person should be. You know what I mean? And even if they don't change or not, at least they came into contact with true light. And if they come into enough contact with enough true light, sooner or later that light's going to get a hold of them. It's going to get on them. And that's how I think we affect change. We affect change through love. You know what I mean? We affect change through love. That's really, Yeah.
I appreciate that. Now listen to my follow-up question. On a night of lights, when the world has paused to recognize movies getting done, the slap heard around the world. Will Smith runs up on Chris Rock, and then you have so many comments of it playing into the narrative. There go them Negroes again.
Yes.
On this night, Will Smith done smacked somebody, smacked another black man in his face. What do you think about what happened with that slap Will Smith did? And again, playing in the stories, playing in the narratives. Does he contribute to a narrative of how people view African Americans? Is that something he was justified in? I mean, we're not in his shoes. I'm not in his shoes. But again, as I'm looking at how stories get perpetuated, depending on which media you read, depending on which TV show you're watching, they're trying to paint it a certain way on what that slap was. Just with you being in the industry,
absolutely.
Was it worth Will Smith crossing the line at that type of night and that type of gala? Or that type of event, I should say.
It was not worth it. Okay. So we're in 2022. If you go back, 60 years, certain skin tone was the only skin tone in the room. Okay. So, and there's been a lot of people of color who worked really hard in proving the stereotypes wrong. Saying, hey, we're legitimate storytellers, we're bankable storytellers, see us, we're here, we're viable. We're craftsmen too. We're craftsmen too. And there's a lot of people that came before Will and myself that we were standing on the shoulders of. And for you to be there, I'm gonna break it all the way down to a simple, I think, analogy everybody can understand. You don't show up to church on Sunday wearing a do-rag and like jeans and like a jersey, Mitchell Ness jersey.
Jesus said, "Come as you are." Right, I understand, but that's
there's a decorum, right? There's a decorum that we must follow, a formality that is set forth what it means to be Sunday going to church, right? There's a formality that we all know, right? There's a dress code that we all know, okay? So the Oscars is no different from a Sunday service. There's a decorum and a formality we must follow. And going back to the word, this 4-letter word, love, it's really how you treat somebody, man. And for one man to publicly, globally humiliate another man, I don't even care. I'm not even going to bring the color into it. For me, I'm just going to say, man to man, as a man, you wouldn't humiliate another man in front of the whole world. You just wouldn't do that. You don't behave like that. And a person who's willing to do that in front of everybody, I get curious about. And it really shows me, in that moment where that person's heart, what extent their heart can go to, which I know is all possible because everything is possible as human beings. But I just thought I just felt embarrassed, honestly. And it was just uncalled for. It's all a conversation. Jada, I know she has the sort of situation going on with alopecia, and I understand her sort of reservations about it. But it's also, you're living a really good life. God has been really good to you. You guys are very well off, man. And it's like when you forget the simple things like that, and you think of yourself so much so that you can't laugh at yourself, you can't have a joke with yourself. You got to always find humor in life, even in the darkest moments, in the deepest struggles. You got to find the humor. You got to find the lightness. There's a lightness there, and I felt that the fact that she can laugh at that and really, and I know it's a hard thing, but it's also like, Chris Rock is a comedian, and this is this man. It's like he's joking on everybody. Nobody's exempt. That's just the night. So,
exactly.
And I have to be very specific in what language I use and how I would like to fully respond to this. But as a woman, I don't think a woman that no matter how she felt, how hurt she was, she wouldn't allow her husband to get up there and do that in front of. She would have put some restraint on it. Nah, okay, don't do that. Some hold back, hold him back, not to do that. And the fact that she didn't sort of try to restrain or keep that from happening was very informative.
Yeah.
Very informative. And so, I it's unfortunate when I look at it about how their relationship has suffered because of quote unquote fame. And for me, that event was a prime example of how the machine of Hollywood can sort of really get in and really steer individuals into a direction that isn't doesn't yield any true fruit of life in a certain kind of way. You know, I think they're just so part of the thing, right? That they just gotten away from what it means to be, you know, together and living life. So yeah, that was very. Hmm?
Yeah, I mean that's very interesting that you would say that, which kind of leads into my next question. You know,
Yeah.
it seems they've given up a lot, and like you said, kind of, and I don't know what that lifestyle is like out there in Hollywood,
Yeah.
but it seems like they have sacrificed a lot to get into the position that they have gotten into. How would you define sacrifice? As far as trying to grow your brand, um, you know, what does it mean to be successful? You know, a lot of
Okay.
people when I'm talking to my fifth graders, there's been a sermon that I've been listening to that TD Jakes gave on struggling and looking at some of your struggle as part of your salvation, and people wanting to get off of not having to go through anything to get to what they want. But a
Okay.
lot of times what you're going through is going to be the fastest way to get to exactly where you're trying to be at.
Right.
So you know, what did, in a sense, I guess Will Smith did
Hmm.
not want to sacrifice not slapping Chris Rock, but doing that, he could have received his reward with a lot of dignity and honor there. And then everybody else would have been like, oh man, Chris Rock didn't know this. They probably would have jumped on Chris Rock in regards to a kind of a tongue lash and him talking about Jada if he would have sacrificed not getting out of that chair and smacking Chris Rock. I'm
Right.
asking, how do you define sacrifice, and what is your definition of being successful out in Hollywood right now?
How do I define sacrifice? Sacrifice is such a funny word. You know, I feel you have to be aligned with purpose. And if you're aligned with purposeful work, you know, the quote unquote sacrifice isn't so bad. But I think sacrifice shouldn't be not necessarily something that you're not having.
Mm.
It should,
And I
you
may
know,
be
it should.
using the wrong word.
Yeah, yeah. Sacrifice shouldn't be something that you're not having, but just so happens that if you're in proper alignment with that sort of purposeful work, then the things that aren't
Okay.
aligned with that you just don't do. So there's a narrow path of what it is you want to accomplish. There's a narrow path on that. There's a wavelength that you got to operate in line within, and that isn't an all-encompassing a path. Everything isn't on that path. So
Right.
now the things that aren't on that path, you don't want to have anything to do with because they're not aligned with what it is you're trying to, you know what I mean, accomplish. And I don't know, the video's stuck right there. What it is you're trying to accomplish. And so, oh, there it is.
You still coming through clear though, cuz.
You coming through? Okay, cool. So,
Yes.
so that's how I define. That's how I sort of approach that topic is, you know, things that aren't necessarily aligned with the path that you're going, you just naturally aren't gonna be doing them. Things that are aligned with that path, you will be doing them. Now, it just may be a moment of time. You know, you may not be doing something today or next month or in a couple of months. Maybe something may be down the line, and you're patient in that. So that patience, you don't feel sacrifice within that patience, you know, because you know once you're able to do that thing that you've been patient about, you're going to be properly able to sort of utilize yourself within that moment, and truly, because you've been yourself. So I don't necessarily know, if about sacrifice when it comes to sort of, if you're on your path. Now, a person feel like I'm sacrificing this, I'm sacrificing that, and it's like this, and it feels such a drag. It feels like such a weight that I really think you should really do some hard sort of thinking about what path you're on. And because a lot of
Right.
times our actions can be one thing, but our path could be completely different. And so that's why we feel like there's a misalignment. And that's why we feel like we're sacrificing something so drastic, because it's like, well, you're probably not aligned with what it is you're pursuing. You're probably not fully aligned with that. Because if you were fully aligned, everything would naturally sort of present itself, that you should be doing on that path, and you wouldn't view it as a sacrifice. It's either I need it or I don't. There's no gray. There's no gray. There's no
Yeah.
lukewarm. You know, and then what would you say? What does it mean to be successful?
Right. How would you define success?
I define success as having your health, living a joyous, happy life, pursuing joy and happiness, and
Hmm.
making a living on your own terms, where you're in the driver's seat. And I try to keep it very simple, because that can manifest itself in so many ways. But if those are the core sort of founding elements to you waking up every day, and you're approaching the day with a sense of gratitude, to just be doing what it is you have fun like a kid, like your children. Children know how to have fun, but somewhere along the line, we lose this fun. We lose a sense of joy in life. And I think it's always important for us, no matter as we mature, as we get older, even our dads and moms and everybody who's older, to maintain a sense of joy and wonder about life. Keeping your inner kid, your inner child alive. I think that's really important. And I think that's the definition for me. It's waking up the day, looking at the day in that way, and approaching the day on your own terms, and you're making a living on your own terms. Even if you're doing something that's temporary, because you have other things happening, that's going to manifest in its own time, but you're aligned with that. The thing that you're doing temporary, you enjoy, because it's part of you. It's on that path. You're just being
Yeah.
patient for this thing to happen.
And
So that's
I
how we
like what you said. Hmm. And I
yeah,
just sorry to interrupt there, but I like what you're saying. I think people miss what you said a few times is the patient part. And I think a lot of times people see the patience as the sacrifice that they're not willing to wait, even though they want to be a successful real estate agent. They want to be a successful car dealer. They want to be a successful basketball player. They're not willing to put in that patience or that sacrifice. I have to show up at the gym. I have to read this many books. I
But see,
see it
that's
all
the
the
point.
time.
You see what you're saying? Listen how you're
Mhm.
saying it. You're saying, I have to do this. I have to do this.
Exactly.
But if you're
Exactly.
aligned with that purposeful thing, you can't wait to do it. You find so much joy and comfort in that process.
Right. I agree. And I think that's finding that childlike mindset of saying, "Hey, I'm imagining this, and I can see myself being successful at
Mhm.
doing this." And it seems that it's hard for people to find that connect.
Yeah. And back
And
to what you're saying,
mhm.
earlier, keep that thought, is that's what the war is about today. The war is
Wow.
robbing people of this inner child. That's what the war is on. The war is about
Okay.
taking your joy. You know what I mean? Because you ain't got this, you don't have
Yes.
that, you don't have that. Look at that Instagram post, look at that social media post. Look how happy they're advertising. Everything is a walking advertisement with no substance.
Mm,
You know
that's
what I
heavy.
mean?
Right.
And so that joy is really worth I think the attack, the mental health in that joy, I think is really that's what's under attack. That's what's under attack. Yeah.
That's
Because
heavy.
it's setting
That's
these unreal expectations on people that they don't know how to accomplish it, and like they're just overcompensating, not even being themselves. They're walking shells of themselves. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
deep. That's deep
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I like how you frame that. I like how you
Yeah.
frame that. They're
Yeah.
trying to. The war is on stealing your joy, stealing that inner child in you.
Yes. Yes.
Again, getting your mind to think, "Hey, you're not there yet. Look, we
Yes.
here. Everybody here but you. Where you at?"
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And you
Exactly.
need to be in line with your walk and your purpose and what God had called you to do. Not worrying about
Yes.
everybody else, but
Nope.
what's your purpose,
Nope.
and you're gonna fall in love with the process once you know your purpose.
There, you're on target. You're on
All
target.
right, cuz I like that. I like that. Let's go to this next one. I'm thinking about
Okay.
because you kind of answered that question that I had. And I think some people do lose moral standing trying to be successful, but chasing that dream versus chasing that inner child that's inside and them following their
Mm-hmm.
own dream. But if
Mm-hmm.
you could tell any story, cuz if you could tell any story that has already been told or not told, whose would you want to tell and why? And then what connects humans to storytelling? I think we already kind of went on that, but let's just put a
Yeah.
bow on it if we
Well,
can.
you know what story I want to tell. And actually, I got to get back to Alabama, and I got to get with it's a dramaturg. He's at this sort of he's at this historical national history sort of campus. He's one of the historians there, but he wants to get together and help me dramaturg. He wants to sort of help me sort of develop this. But this story is the story of Crispus Attucks.
What? I say that
Sure.
because I'm doing my little fifth grade ELA class, and that's my guy. That's what I've been thinking about Crispus Attucks and how we relate to the Declaration of Independence. A whole nother story. We talking about Jason telling stories right now, but go ahead, cuz wow,
Yes.
I'm excited. I'm excited. We got
So
some exclusivity over here.
the reason
Uh-huh.
being is the first fatality, the first person who died for this country was an African American.
How ironic is that? Whose country is this?
How
Yeah,
so?
that's deep. That's why I chose that one for these guys.
On
That's
so
heavy,
many
cuz.
levels, on so many levels, and that blew my mind. I went there. We did this sort of we did this a film shoot there for a few days. It was about the Declaration, a lot of the things that were going on. But I found this little
Right.
tidbit about Crispus Attucks. I was like, that is fascinating. That's so fascinating. And it's such a
Yes.
story that needs to be told in a
Yes.
very, 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 from a very objective, articulate sort of with heart,
Right.
and so people can understand something that I think is not talked about or often overlooked. And I just think that story is one of those stories that done right can be really powerful. And so that's something I got in my toolkit to kind of develop. Hopefully, maybe this summer, I'll get with the guy and start developing on the script and stuff. But that's definitely a story that I feel, as far as this country goes, and being a citizen of this country, I think it's important to explore all the nooks and crannies of the foundation of this country. And I think that's something that's a brick in this foundation that hasn't necessarily been looked at. And I like to take and articulate that brick in this foundation of this country and really put it on a stage so it can really be consumed and maybe help change hearts, maybe help give realizations where realizations weren't. At that time in his passing and the declaration, actually, the country was very, very segregated. It's very segregated, even within the European class system. You had the Irish or the Brit. It was so segregated. There weren't like there's so many little factions, and I just think that's very it's very peculiar. And I think in the segregation of it, in the understanding of that segregation, as just being a founding part of this country, we can get in there and sort of release some tension through that process. Release some tension.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. 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 Wow. I am excited. I am super excited. And looking forward to you working on that one, cuz that kind of answers my last question in regards to what's your next move. You just shared that with us.
That's not next move. That's not next move. That's hopefully I'm doing good if I get that script written in the next 2 years.
Okay.
Like
Glory to God.
The next move.
Huh?
The next move is the film about this transitory place we all go through. That's the next move.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
The one with the transition and being in that middle spot. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, y'all heard it. Y'all heard it first. And then the other one was and I think we've been talking about this though. What connects humans to storytelling? You kind of framed that very well at the beginning of our interview.
Okay. Well, I give you a simple.
Put a bow on it though.
I give you a simple thought. Since the dawn of man, we've all sat around in caves, around fires, and told stories.
Mm-hmm.
And why do we tell stories? It's the power of the imagination. We're able to talk right now. I'm looking at you on the screen. You're looking at me. You're hearing me talk. I'm hearing you talk. This process is happening because of imagination.
Right.
Somebody thought this. That car you drive in the morning, somebody had imagined it to be. That food you ate and the way it's processed and the way it's put together, somebody imagined it to be. So with that, I'm saying stories are a way for human beings to articulate the imagination. And our imagination is the most powerful thing we have as a human race on planet Earth. That is how we are what we are today. That is how we will be here in the future, through imagination. And I just feel stories as a great vehicle for us all to sit around and come together and be in awe and wonder at the imagination. And I think our imagination is what brings us all together. And like I said, I think it's just the very fabric of our existence. Everything, all our operations from day to day are based out of, is here, is present in existence because of imagination. The light bulb. Thomas said, it's imagination. It's imagination.
No doubt. Greatest gift God ever gave man, no doubt.
Yes,
that's why he had to block him from that tree, because
it's his gift. You say gift, but it's actually our channel of communication with God. It is how we communicate with God. Yes, that's how we get information. That's how we get information in this plane, in this reality. That's how we get information from the nether, right? From the beyond. That's how it gets here. Through we tapping into our imagination. And when you tap into imagination from the heart, from a place of love and a place of the all human, that's when a lot of magic can happen, man. That's when a lot of magic can happen. So I'm definitely a student and an advocate for the imagination.
Amen. And speaking of which, what are your thoughts on the metaverse? I keep hearing all this conversation on the metaverse and what's next beyond that. that internet piece that we're talking on now? What's that next metaverse
Okay.
gonna be?
Well, I put it like this. I had a big meeting yesterday, and it's one of those things where the metaverse is gonna be a true democracy. What's gonna happen is all the, you said something about the baby boomers having the keys. This metaverse, the blockchain, society, globally, society is moving towards this. And it's going to be where true democracy, I think, it takes place. So everybody will be able to own something that's part of day-to-day living. So now, all the corporations, while we're not necessarily against corporations, the corporations don't necessarily have a monopoly on our day-to-day functions. So it's happening with the metaverse. You and I, the common man and woman, will be able to have stock, have personal ownership of so many day-to-day functions. And
Right.
that's how we're going to truly democratize sort of a society in a certain kind of way. That is actually, that's in the next 5 years, your mind is about to be blown. In the next 5 years, man, it's amazing. It's amazing what they're doing. I mean, it's amazing. It's really amazing. And we're going to be in a place where it will be a lot more equality. I will say that,
Okay.
it's not like, certain company X, profits 3 billion, but only 8 people see that 3 billion, right? But they have all
Right.
these employees and have all the, what I'm saying? So it's just going to be a way, it's just going to kind of tip the scale. It's going to tip the
Gotcha.
scale where your everyday man and woman have stock in the daily functions of life. And I think it's going to be it's going to be a beautiful thing.
Awesome. Hey
Yeah.
man, that sounds good. Cause I appreciate you jumping on again with me, man. Last minute. It's been a super
Yeah.
blessing. See you in person.
Yes.
On the imagination of Google, the ABC company.
Yeah.
And hey man, I look forward to all that we have in the pot that we cook, and we ain't even touch on so much,
Yeah.
but
So
only so
much.
much time. I'm sure we'll do another one of these
Yeah.
as old school Sunday conversations grow. I'm hoping that anybody's
Yeah.
watching, we're able to glean some of this knowledge and some of the
Yeah.
information in regards to storytelling. And I hope y'all go out there and tell your story. Jason, if you have some people that are fans and they see this old school Sunday conversation and they have some
Yeah.
questions for you in regards to maybe submitting the script to you or have
Okay.
ideas that they're trying to get to Hollywood, do you have any contact information that you want to share here in this space?
Yes, you can reach me at email me at johudson at creekwaterfilms.us. Again, that's
All right.
johudson at creekwaterfilms.us. And that's just the email. And yeah, people can reach out to me there. Questions, I'm open. Things are kind of picking back up. We're kind of finishing this film now that we're working on, but things are going good with that. But yeah, I can be reached there for sure. That's me. That's my personal email at the production company. So that's the one I look at. So I definitely can
Awesome.
be on the lookout for anything, any questions, anything like that.
Good deal. All right, guys. Y'all heard it there. Cuz I love you, man. I appreciate your time again.
Yes, man. Thank you so much. It was a blessing. Again, everyone, the imagination. The most powerful thing we have is the imagination and our inner child. So go be that fun kid that you know you to be. It's okay. It's okay to have that child have some fun. Enjoy life for sure.
Yes. All right now.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
All right, cuz. Okay, sounds good.
All right now.
All right, bye.
Peace.